How fast the world collapses after the internet goes down. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You reach for your phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no bars, nothing. You think maybe it is just your phone. But then you look outside and you see your neighbors standing in their driveways, looking confused, looking scared, because they have no signal either. And here is the terrifying part. That is not a glitch. That is not a temporary outage. That is the beginning of the end. And what happens next? Now, before we get into the timeline, before I show you exactly how fast civilization unravels when the internet disappears, I need you to understand something critical. The internet is not just social media. It is not just your YouTube videos or your text messages. The internet is the invisible backbone of modern civilization. It is the nervous system that keeps everything running. Power grids, banking systems, supply chains, hospital equipment, traffic lights, gas stations, grocery stores, all of it. Every single system you rely on to live your daily life is connected to and dependent on the internet. And we never think about it, because it has always been there, like oxygen. You do not think about oxygen until suddenly you cannot breathe. And that is exactly what makes this scenario so terrifying. Let me paint you a picture. It is a regular Tuesday morning. People are commuting to work. Kids are heading to school. The stock market is opening. Everything seems normal. And then, at exactly 9:15 in the morning, something happens. Maybe it is a massive cyber attack coordinated by a hostile nation. Maybe it is a solar flare that fries communication satellites. Maybe it is an electromagnetic pulse from a high-altitude nuclear detonation. It does not matter what causes it. What matters is the result. In one moment, the entire internet infrastructure of the United States goes dark. And within seconds, you are going to watch the most advanced civilization in human history start to crumble. The first thing people notice is their phones. The apps stop loading. Messages will not send, calls drop or never connect. People think it is a carrier issue. They try Wi-Fi. Nothing. They reset their routers. Nothing. They restart their phones. Still nothing. The first 15 minutes are marked by confusion, mild annoyance. People assume it will be fixed soon. Tech issues happen all the time, right? But this time is different. This time there is no fix coming. Because this time, the internet is not coming back. Within the first hour, things start getting weird. Credit card machines stop working. You cannot buy gas. You cannot buy groceries. You cannot pay for anything unless you have cash in your pocket. And here is the thing about cash. Most people do not carry it anymore. The average American has less than $50 in physical currency on them at any given time. So imagine standing at a gas station. Your tank is almost empty. You have a wallet full of useless plastic cards, and the cashier is telling you there is nothing they can do. The system is down, cash only, and you do not have cash. Multiply that by millions of people, all at the same time, all experiencing the same panic. That is hour one. But here is where it gets really bad, and I mean genuinely terrifying bad. The banking system runs on the internet, all of it. Your bank account, your savings, your paycheck, your mortgage payment, your investments, every single transaction, every single record, all of it lives in the cloud, on servers, connected through the internet. When the internet dies, your money becomes nothing more than ones and zeros trapped in machines that cannot talk to each other. ATMs stop dispensing cash immediately, not because they are out of money, but because they cannot verify your account. They cannot connect to the central system, so they lock up, every single one of them, nationwide. At the same time, you have money in your account, maybe thousands of dollars, maybe your entire life savings, but you cannot access a single penny of it because the system that proves you own that money is gone. Now let me pause here for a second, because I need you to really sit with that. Everything you have worked for, every paycheck you have earned, every dollar you have saved, all of it becomes completely inaccessible, instantly, without warning. And there is nothing you can do about it. No customer service to call, no manager to complain to, no one to fix it. Because everyone is dealing with the same problem. And this is still just the first few hours. By hour 3, the panic starts to set in. People realize this is not a normal outage. News stations are scrambling, but they cannot broadcast properly. Their entire operation depends on internet connectivity. Teleprompters do not work. Graphics do not load. Communication between producers and anchors breaks down. Some local stations manage to get emergency broadcasts out over traditional radio waves. But the information is fragmented, confusing, and terrifying because no one knows what is happening. And when people do not know what is happening, when they cannot get information, when they feel blind and helpless, That is when fear takes over. By hour 6, the first wave of panic buying begins. But it is different this time. There is no organized rush to the store. There is chaos, because stores cannot process transactions. They cannot scan items. They cannot calculate totals. They cannot accept any form of electronic payment. Some store managers make a decision. They start accepting cash only. Handwritten receipts, manual calculations. But the lines stretch out the door, and people are getting impatient, getting angry, getting desperate. Arguments break out, shoving, yelling. The first reports of theft start coming in, people grabbing things and running. Because who is going to stop them? The security cameras do not work. The alarm systems are offline. And the police? Well, the police have their own problems. Emergency services depend on the internet more than you realize. Dispatch systems, database access, GPS navigation, communication between units. All of it runs through connected systems. When the internet goes down, 911 centers across the country experience immediate chaos. Calls flood in, but dispatchers cannot access addresses properly. They cannot pull up caller information. They cannot coordinate with units in the field. Officers on the street cannot run plates, cannot check for warrants, cannot request backup through normal channels. They are operating blind, and in a situation where everyone is panicking. Operating blind is a death sentence. By hour 12, something happens that very few people anticipate. The power starts going out, not everywhere at once, but in rolling waves, section by section. And here is why. The modern electrical grid is one of the most complex interconnected systems ever built. It requires constant real-time monitoring and adjustment. Power plants, substations, transformers, all of these components communicate with each other through the internet. They balance loads. They reroute power during surges. They prevent overloads and cascading failures. Without that communication, without that coordination, the grid starts to destabilize. Frequency fluctuations occur, voltage irregularities cause equipment damage, and automatic safety systems start shutting down sections of the grid to prevent total collapse. But here is the problem. Those safety systems were designed assuming the internet would come back on. They were designed for temporary outages, not permanent darkness. By hour 18, nearly 40% of the country has lost power, and with the power goes everything else. Water treatment plants stop functioning, sewage systems fail, hospitals switch to backup generators. But those generators only have so much fuel, and no one is delivering more fuel, because the trucks that deliver fuel need gas stations that can pump gas. And gas stations need electricity to pump gas. And they need internet to process payments. See how it all connects. See how one failure leads to another leads to another. It is called cascading collapse. And once it starts, it is nearly impossible to stop. Let me take you into day 2 now. Because this is when everything changes. This is when society crosses a threshold that is very hard to come back from. By the 36-hour mark, grocery stores are empty. Not just low on stock, empty. Every shelf stripped bare. Water, gone. Canned goods, gone. Baby formula, gone. Medication, gone. People took everything they could carry. And the stores have no way to restock, because the entire supply chain is broken. Think about how groceries get to your local store. They come from warehouses, which receive them from distribution centers, which receive them from manufacturers, which receive raw materials from farms and factories. All of those connections, every single handoff, every single delivery, all of it is coordinated through the internet. Orders are placed online. Shipments are tracked through GPS. Inventory is managed through cloud software. Take away the internet, and the entire system freezes. Trucks do not know where to go. Warehouses do not know what to ship. Stores do not know what is coming. Nothing moves. Nothing arrives, and people get hungry. Hunger changes people. I need you to understand that. A hungry person is not the same as a fed person. Desperation rewires the brain. It overrides social conditioning. It strips away the thin veneer of civilization that we all pretend is permanent. By day 2, desperate people start doing desperate things. Break-ins begin. Not just stores, homes, anywhere that might have food, anywhere that might have water, anywhere that might have supplies. Neighbors start looking at each other differently. That family down the street who always seemed to have everything. Suddenly they become a target, not out of malice, out of survival. And that is the most disturbing part. Good people, normal people, people who would never hurt anyone, start making choices they never imagined they would make. Because their children are hungry, because their elderly parents need medication, because survival instincts are more powerful than we want to admit. By 48 hours, the government attempts to respond, but their response is crippled from the start. Military communication systems have redundancies, satellite networks, hardened systems, but coordination with civilian authorities is nearly impossible. FEMA cannot deploy properly because they cannot communicate with local agencies. The National Guard is mobilized, but units cannot coordinate movements. Supply drops are organized, but distribution points become chaotic. There is no system for keeping track of who has received what. People show up to the same location multiple times while others get nothing. Fights break out over bottles of water, over blankets. The very systems designed to help people become sources of conflict. And here is something that almost no one talks about. Hospitals. By day 2, hospitals are in full crisis mode, not just because of the injured from the chaos outside, but because of the patients who were already there. People on dialysis, their machines do not work without power, without internet connectivity to monitor treatment. People on ventilators, backup generators can only run so long. People who need daily medication that requires refrigeration, cancer drugs, heart medications. The cold chain is broken, medication expires, becomes useless, becomes dangerous. Doctors are forced to make impossible choices. Who gets the limited resources? Who gets to live? Who gets to die? This is triage on a scale that no modern hospital has ever experienced. Day 3 arrives, and by now, the country has split into 2 very different realities. In some areas, communities have come together, neighbors helping neighbors, sharing resources, establishing local order, churches opening their doors, schools becoming shelters, people finding their best selves in the worst circumstances. These pockets of cooperation become islands of stability in a sea of chaos. But in other areas, the opposite happens. Lawlessness spreads, armed groups form, territories are claimed, resources are hoarded and defended with violence. The thin blue line disappears because police officers have families too. They have to make a choice: protect strangers or protect their own. Most choose their own, and who can blame them? By 72 hours, by just 3 days without the internet, American society has fundamentally fractured. The federal government still exists in theory, but in practice, local authority is the only authority that matters. Whoever has food, whoever has water, whoever has weapons, whoever has organization, they make the rules now. And here is the twist that very few people think about. Here is the revelation that makes this scenario even more terrifying. We are just talking about America, but the internet is global. When it goes down, it does not just affect one country. It affects every connected nation on Earth. Europe plunges into chaos. Asia loses its entire manufacturing coordination. Global shipping stops dead. International banking collapses. Stock markets, already unstable, completely crash. Every digital asset on the planet becomes worthless overnight. Trillions of dollars of value evaporated, gone, never coming back. And now we need to talk about the geopolitical implications, because this is where the WW3 angle becomes terrifyingly relevant. When a nation is weakened, when it is distracted by internal chaos, when its military communications are compromised, when its population is fighting over food and water, that is when enemies see opportunity. Hostile nations have wargamed this exact scenario. They know that a sufficiently powerful cyber attack, or EMP, could cripple America without firing a single conventional shot. They know that in the chaos that follows, in the weeks and months of social collapse, there would be almost no capacity for unified military response. They know that sleeper cells and domestic saboteurs could operate freely in the confusion. They know that by the time any recovery is possible, strategic objectives could be achieved, territory could be taken, alliances could be shattered, the balance of global power could be permanently shifted. Some defense analysts believe this is the actual plan, not a massive conventional invasion, not nuclear Armageddon, but a targeted attack on the systems that hold modern civilization together. Knock out the internet, knock out the power grid, and then simply wait for America to tear itself apart from the inside. Wait for the death toll from starvation and disease and violence to do the work that bombs and bullets would traditionally do. It is a cleaner form of warfare, more deniable, harder to attribute, and potentially more effective than any traditional military campaign in history. But let us assume the worst does not happen. Let us assume there is no follow-up military action. Let us assume this is just a catastrophic infrastructure failure and not an attack. How long would recovery take? The honest answer is terrifying. We are not talking weeks. We are not talking months. We are talking years, potentially decades. Because here is what most people do not understand about complex systems. They are much easier to destroy than to rebuild. The internet infrastructure that exists today took 30 years to build, billions of dollars of investment. Millions of man-hours of engineering, countless iterations and improvements, all of that expertise, all of that institutional knowledge, all of that manufacturing capacity, it cannot be recreated overnight. Fiber optic cables need to be inspected and replaced. Servers need to be rebuilt. Data centers need to be reconstructed. And all of this needs to happen while simultaneously trying to maintain basic order, while trying to feed people, while trying to prevent complete societal breakdown. The engineers who know how to rebuild these systems, where are they? They are scattered, trying to survive like everyone else. The factories that make the components, without power, without supply chains, without workers, the coordination required to organize a massive rebuilding effort. It depends on the very communication systems that no longer exist. You need the internet to rebuild the internet. You need power to restore power. You need order to restore order. And when all three are gone at the same time, the bootstrapping problem becomes almost unsolvable. Military historians have a term for this type of scenario. They call it a decapitation strike. Not targeting the leadership, but targeting the systems. Remove the capability for coordination. Remove the capability for communication. Remove the capability for resource distribution, and the largest, most powerful nation on Earth becomes a collection of isolated, frightened communities struggling to survive day by day. All of our advanced technology, all of our sophisticated systems, all of our complexity and interconnection, the very things that make us powerful, they also make us vulnerable, more vulnerable than any civilization in human history. Think about it. Ancient Rome fell over centuries. The collapse was gradual, generational. People adapted as things changed. They had time to develop new skills, new systems, new ways of living, but our collapse, if it happens, would occur in days, not generations. Days? We have optimized everything for efficiency. We have eliminated redundancy. We have centralized control. We have created a system so tightly wound that a single point of failure can bring down the entire structure. We did this because it saved money. It increased profits. It made things convenient. And now that convenience has become our greatest weakness. I want you to think about your own life for a moment. Really think about it. How many days of food do you have in your house right now? Not meals at restaurants, not quick runs to the grocery store. Actual food, in your pantry, in your refrigerator. Most Americans have 3 days worth, maybe 5 if they stretch it. Now think about water. If you turn on your tap and nothing comes out, how much water do you have stored? Most people have none. 0, maybe a few bottles in the fridge, enough for a day, maybe 2. Now think about medication. If you or a family member takes daily medication, how much do you have on hand? Most people get 30-day supplies, and they usually do not refill until the last few days. Now think about cash, physical currency, bills and coins. How much could you put your hands on right now, tonight, without going to an ATM, without making a transaction? These are the calculations that matter when the internet goes down. These are the margins that determine who survives the first week and who does not. And the terrifying truth is that most of us, myself included for a long time, have never seriously thought about it. We trust the system. We assume the conveniences we enjoy today will exist tomorrow. We believe in continuity because we have never experienced discontinuity. But discontinuity is always possible. It has happened before in history. It will happen again. The only question is when, and whether we will be ready. Now I know some of you are thinking that the government has plans for this, that there are secret bunkers and emergency protocols and contingency measures that would kick in. And you are right, those things exist. FEMA has continuity of government plans. The military has hardened communication networks. There are strategic reserves of food and fuel, underground facilities designed to survive exactly this type of scenario. But here is what you need to understand. Those resources, those bunkers, those secret protocols, they are not for you. They are for preserving government function, for protecting essential leadership, for maintaining some form of command structure. The population, regular civilians, you and me, we are on our own for the critical first weeks, maybe longer, because there is simply no way to protect 330 million people from simultaneous infrastructure collapse. The math does not work. The logistics do not work. The resources do not exist. This is not a conspiracy. This is just reality. The government has made triage decisions in advance. They have identified critical personnel, essential infrastructure, priority resources, and everything else, everyone else. We are in a different category. We are the people who need to figure it out ourselves until organized help can reach us. And in a scenario where the internet is gone, where the power grid is failing, where transportation is paralyzed, that help might not come for a very, very long time. So what is the lesson here? What do we take away from this terrifying thought experiment? The lesson is that our world is more fragile than we want to believe. The lesson is that the systems we trust are not as resilient as we assume. The lesson is that individual preparation is not paranoia. It is prudence. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that history does not end, that catastrophe is always possible, that the responsible thing to do is to be ready for disruption, even if it never comes. Because the cost of preparation is small, but the cost of unpreparedness could be everything. Think about what happened during COVID, the early days, the toilet paper shortages, the empty shelves, the confusion and fear. That was a relatively mild disruption. The internet still worked. The power stayed on. The supply chains were stressed but not broken. And even then, even with all systems mostly functioning, we saw panic. We saw hoarding. We saw the cracks in our social fabric. Now imagine something 10 times worse, 100 times worse. Imagine that same fear multiplied across every system simultaneously. That is what we are talking about here. That is the scenario that keeps defense analysts awake at night. That is the threat that most people never seriously consider until it is too late. But here is the thing. I am not telling you this to scare you into paralysis. I am telling you this so you can think clearly. So you can make decisions now while you still have time, while the internet still works, while the stores are still stocked, while the systems are still running. Small preparations make a massive difference. Extra food, stored water, some cash on hand, basic first aid, a plan for your family, knowledge of your local community. These simple steps could be the difference between chaos and stability, between panic and calm, between being part of the problem and being part of the solution. And there is one more layer to this that we need to discuss. The psychological dimension. If the internet went down tomorrow, permanently, what would happen to our minds? We are the most connected generation in human history. We have instant access to information, to entertainment, to communication with anyone, anywhere. We have grown up with this. We are dependent on it in ways we do not even recognize. And suddenly, it would all be gone. The silence would be deafening. The isolation would be crushing. Depression and anxiety would skyrocket. Suicide rates would climb. People would lose their sense of purpose, their connection to the world, their identity. We have outsourced so much of our mental lives to the digital realm that we have forgotten how to exist without it. And that, perhaps, is the most disturbing vulnerability of all. We have built a civilization that runs on invisible signals, on data packets flowing through fiber optic cables, on satellites orbiting 20,000 miles above our heads. We have put all of our eggs in one basket, and we have convinced ourselves that basket is indestructible. But it is not. It never was. And the people who understand this, the people who have studied these systems, the engineers and the security experts and the military planners, they know how fragile it all is. They know how close we are to the edge, and they are preparing accordingly. The question is, are you? I want to leave you with one final thought, something to carry with you. Something to think about tonight when you put your phone down and close your eyes. Every single day that the lights turn on, every single day that water flows from your tap, every single day that your phone connects and your car starts and food appears on store shelves, every single one of those days is not guaranteed. It is a gift. It is the result of millions of people doing their jobs correctly, of thousands of systems functioning properly, of countless points of potential failure not failing. We live in a world of extraordinary complexity and extraordinary fragility. And the sooner we accept that, the sooner we appreciate it. The sooner we prepare for the day when it might all change, the better off we will be. All right? That was a lot. That was heavy. But I think it was important. I think these are conversations we need to be having. I think this is information that needs to spread.